Sit down. Sit down and talk. Sit down and talk. Okay. Um, it's okay. Just okay. Is this me? Okay. I think start your better time. Start your better time. Okay. I'm concerned about the podcast. I want to turn it up for this thing. Do you want to turn it up? Podcast of supposed to be but because okay. Talk, talk, talk. Talk, talk. Yes. What, who is on leave it? I want you to talk. You don't use the mic now. Okay. Want. Okay, we're on break period. We're on break period. That's why there's no audio right now. So audio will come up immediately we are done with the break. Thank you. Charles, come in if you can hear. It's okay. Thank you. It's okay. It's okay. Thank you. Confirmed. Sound check confirmed. Mute.
Okay, we're pressed for time. Can we start coming back in the room?
Abi? No, he's capable of paying. No, no, no.
I'll give you the shirt
And other things.
Yes. I'll give you anything you want. It's not a big deal.
Can we start coming in, please?
So aside. It's good. Yes, sir. You can't just continue coming. They are not contributing to this cause.
Who told you people will come in, you know, we contribute them.
No, be
Okay, are we ready? We're about starting now. So, those of us outside, let's come in. Kingsley, do we have Rudy ready? Can we check his audio if he can hear me? Tell him to unmute and let me know if he can hear me.
I can hear you.
Fantastic, Rudy. Loud and clear, loud and clear. Great. So, the next session we want to go into would be taken by my good friend, Rudy. And why this is, sorry, you guys can hear me, right? Okay. Okay, great. While this is very important to me and also surreal, it's because this has come full cycle. A couple of years ago, Rudy was meant to join us in Lagos for the conference. And Rudy flew by himself on his own expense all the way from Belgium, landed in Lagos, told me he had landed in Lagos, only to be unfortunately turned back by immigration at the airport. And they had gone ahead to say it's visa on arrival. When he landed, they said they were processing visa for him. We didn't get any clear explanation. They just put him on the plane back. So unfortunately, Rudy never got the chance to even speak to us or share from his knowledge. But I think what has been fascinating for me was he has always remained in touch and continued to share from his experience with others. So today, Rudy, I'll say it's come full circle, and I'm glad that you are here to share from your wealth of experience with us. Rudy will be speaking to us all the way from Belgium this afternoon, and he will be speaking on a topic that also aligns with what we have been discussing this morning. He'll be speaking on human factor in asset management. Now, some of you might understand the term asset management. Some of you might need it broken down for you. I'm sure Rudy is very, very capable of doing that. I would like to hand over to Rudy, who will do his introduction and then take us on human factor in asset management. Rudy, over to you. Rudy, we can see your screen. Go ahead.
Okay. no more, no less. And it's in every single level of your department. So the technician, the manager, the supervisor, everything, but it works for everybody the same. If you got your success achieved, then the most important thing comes is recognition. The boss should just tip the shoulder, not the money. The money takes 3 months and then it's gone. Then you're used to the money. But a tip on the shoulder rest, that takes a lot longer. So if you don't make use of the knowledge of your people and you do not empower them, what do you get? Cheap. If you put fences around people, you get cheap. So if you look back into the past and you see, okay, I've got a diploma, and a diploma, you come into a company and the company says, okay, I put you in an org chart over there, and that's your function description. And then you get a function description is some, and you see you got small sheep, you got senior sheep, but you also got always a few black sheep in the room. So we have to make sure if you put fence around people, you get sheep. What do you need then? Sheep management. And then you got 4 types of managers. You got the managers that are in control. And those are the managers with the people management skills and managerial skills. Those people do not necessarily need the technical skills as their technicians have, because you empower your technicians, you make use of their knowledge. You need to manage this knowledge. So those are the good ones. Secondly, you're under control. So if your manager has a director above him who's a micromanager, then it's your manager under control, and it's useless. Third one, out of control. You can have a manager, and I always make the comparison. If you got a good mechanic, you say, I want to reward him as a good mechanic, I make him team lead. But the guy has no people management skills, he will be a rubbish team lead. Huh? So if you have a manager who's out of control, as a manager who doesn't have people management skills, and he cannot lead, but perhaps he's a good expert in his role. So make him not a manager, but make him an expert. Last but not least, there's no control. Huh? There are the people who would like to be the happy ones, the ones who go for a beer with everybody in the room, but have low technical knowledge and have no people management. So use the power of your people and empower them. Use the knowledge of the people and empower them. If you do that, engagement happens when people feel safe to take action on their own initiative. Just promote that. People feel safe when they trust their environment, and a trusted environment is something that is being created by the management. People trust their environment when they feel fairly treated by it. And the key is to create a culture of trust in organization. And I get you one perfect quote of a certain Mr. Simon Sinek. He says, if you hire people just because they can do the job, they will work for the money. Or the not engaged people. But if you hire people who believe what you believe. So fact number 3, if people can't weigh in, they won't buy in. So if you go into a change project and you do not involve your people, they will look at every single thing as a problem. If you involve your people and they can make and build the process by themselves or within a team, they see in every problem a solution. That's the difference. Change. Everybody wants change. Everybody wants to get better, but no one wants to cooperate on change. And why is that? And what is the most important thing if you want to start a change project? If you've read the book of dear Mr. Kotter, it says, what's in it for me? And there's a quote from Jack Welch. So every single guy in the plant, if a change project is started, the first thing that pops up in everybody's minds, what's in it for me? Everybody is thinking about it. If that's going to change, what's going to happen with me? And what is going to be my role after the change? And that's why there needs to be a sense of urgency. Just if you want to start a change project, that's quite normal, then you need to inform the people why you need to change. There needs to be a sense of urgency. You cannot change for the change. So if you start a change project, you communicate the sense of urgency. That's why we need to change, and we better do it now before change before you have to. Also means if you do not change right now, someone else comes in, some kind of a crisis manager, and he will do it for us, and then we have no impact on the change. So if there's a change, always communicate what's the sense of urgency, and always communicate to the people what's in it for them. It's quite important. So if you look into the 4 facts, the first fact is that only 13% of your population is engaged. So if you start a change project, try to locate those 13% and try to build a small pilot project which you are almost certain that it will succeed. And then you can draw in the 63 other percent that are not engaged. That's the way it works. Secondly, engagement comes together with empowerment of your people and using the knowledge of your people. Third, if it don't evolve me, it don't involve me. So if I can't weigh in, I won't buy in. So everybody needs to work on the change to involve everybody in the change and make work groups. And it doesn't really matter in what level of the company you are, but everybody got great ideas. And if it's someone who's no idea of the technique where what you want to change, is the guy who thinks out of the box. Always include a guy who thinks out of the box. And for last but not least, it's change before you have to. There needs to be a sense of urgency when you start a change. So please explain to the people why the change is going to happen and what's in it for them if the change has happened. So what could be a cause for a change? I've done several over the past years. When one project in the food industry, the reason for optimization of the maintenance and engineering department was cost reduction caused by the financial situation of the company. If the financial situation of your company is rather low, the first reduction in cost is going to be on the maintenance, most likely the preventive maintenance budget. So that's one thing we had to do. So we had to optimize the preventive maintenance plans, and also we look into the planning and the scheduling of the maintenance department. Secondly, the pharma, the reason for the implementation of an integrated maintenance software, a commercial production to license to operate. If you work in a pharma industry and it isn't documented, it doesn't exist, is what the FDA is telling you. Just everything needs to be documented. If you want to have a proper documentation, you need a CMMS to do so. And third, and last but not least, the last project was in the nuclear industry. The reason for implementation of an integrated maintenance software was a result of the thematic inspection of the FANC. The FANC is the legislation in Belgium who does the audits and the controls on the nuclear installation in Belgium. So we had some kind of an automatic inspection. They say when you're Rudy, the documentation of what you are doing on a maintenance and engineering part is not well documented, so please get it in order. So that is the sense of urgency. Why do we have to change? A change direct. What we did, for instance, was we had to combine the engineering and the maintenance departments. We had one engineering maintenance leader, and you had to rule the two departments. But if you look at engineering, they have another point of view, another vision, another strategy. So if you look in engineering, you got your iron triangle, your scope is connected with your timing and your cost. And if those three are in order, your quality of your project is okay. So what we did here, the budget cost and the time must be under control. And we implemented a project management system. On the other hand, if you look at the maintenance vision and the strategy that's necessary, then you see you need 100% availability of your equipment and a reasonable life cycle cost of your equipment. So to increase the efficiency in a maintenance department, normally the first thing you look at is the planning, the work preparation, in other words, and the scheduling optimization. So what do you need then? In the implementation of a work order process, and make sure that there's a software around it to combine those two together in a CMMS or an EMA. The CMMS stands for a maintenance management system, and the CCMS stands for a calibration maintenance management system. PM is a project management system. and we need to modify the processes. The scope of the complete change project was in one case the engineering optimization and processes, and on the other hand the maintenance changes in the process. But somehow they get connected somewhere, and there is a missing link between those two departments. They are an awful lot of time forgotten, because the engineering, they build a lot of things, throw it over the wall, and then maintenance have to live with those equipments for 25 years. They have no impact on the real design, and that's one thing that needs to change. But I'm going to explain later in the presentation how we're going to handle that. So how do we start? If I enter a new company, then I would like to know the people. It's a little bit about me. You got several processes to do so. One process was in the former presentation discussed, and that is the DISC method is one of them. I am more fond of MBTI, there's the Myers-Briggs type indicator, and GROW. So how does it work? The Myers-Briggs type indicator, if you Google it on the internet, 50% find it rubbish, 50% is big fan of it. I use it only as a teaser for the people. And I'm going to explain it in one example. When I was in the pharma industry, I had a calibration team and I had an electrician team. An electrician team are typical people who are extrovert. Calibration people or people who work very secure, no planning allowed, and they're introvert people. So I put all of those people in the same meeting room, and then we start discussing the past week. What is always that the electricians were talking and the calibration people were never talking. So because they're introverts. So I split up that meeting. Because I knew I had a meeting separately with the electrician, and I could ask questions right away and I got answers right away. There was no issue, no problem. And then I got the calibration people and I asked a question to the calibration people. They need to think about that. So I asked them, that's an issue. Can you give me an answer the next meeting, next week? So next week, the meeting, I get a 100% complete answer to my question of the week before. When I talk to electricians, they answer me right away, and that's 70, 80% correct. So you can't combine this, but everybody thinks in another way. So if you look into those charts here, you see ESTG and ESTG, and then you get ESFG. There's some types of characters, but it's important that you know who is where in which character. Then you know if I'm going to ask something to that guy, and I know that guy is an introvert, then I cannot expect an answer immediately. And that was why the people were frustrated in the past. I asked him, but he doesn't answer me. Of course not, because you have to think about it and the way around. So that's why I do that. It's a fun thing. It takes a half a day, and afterwards a half a day, everybody gets his tag, and it's a lot of jokes, but people try to understand not everybody works and thinks like myself. That's the basic idea. Then I talk to everyone separately, and I say everyone, I mean everyone. I talk to the director as well, to the girl who does the cleaning, which is also a very important job. Don't underestimate it. So I talk to everybody, and everybody has a chance to start a GROW project. And GROW is some kind of a process that stands for what's your goal? What's the reality now? What are your obstacles and your opportunities? And what's the way forward? So I talk to every single guy saying, what is one thing you would like to change here since you work here, but you never had a chance to do so? And that's reality. So in reality, that's my problem. Not so big deal, but that needs to change, and I would like to change it. And that's their goal. It's the G1 goal. And then we ask, what are the opportunities? And what are your obstacles not achieving that? And then what's the way forward to accomplish that? So everybody gets a chance to build their own small project. Also to prepare them, use your brain, and empower you. I make sure you get a budget. You have to make sure you do the change. We're very small. Then after I've talked to everybody, I give a general presentation to the complete team. Also with the director, everybody's in the room. And then we start. And in that particular case, we had 7 levels. We had technicians, we had coordinators, engineers, managers, and then directors. And what was, and you need to talk that through with the director, of course, but in this case, the director wasn't the best guy in the world. So we had to split up manager and directors and engineers, coordinators and technicians. They found those 3 levels inferior. For me, this is 2020. It was quite strange that time to see that. Here you see coordinators, technicians, and it goes also for the maintenance department. Never get the credits for things that didn't go wrong. If you work in a project environment and you start your project and a few things went wrong during the startup of the project, that's normal. But if something goes wrong within the maintenance department, that's not normal. How is that possible? But they never get the credit for things that didn't go wrong. That's an important thing. Also, yeah, technicians is a necessary evil because it's a cost center, it's not a profit center. I will tell you, a maintenance department is a profit center. The only thing you have to do is take the maintenance department away and see what happens with your equipment a half a year later. Then it's going to cost you an awful lot of money. So the difference between the normal maintenance cost and no maintenance cost is going to be an awful big deal. Engineer, cheap, but they have to apply their job, what the manager was saying. So they were cheap, there were fences around those people. There was financial difference between the engineers and the coordinators, although they were 50% doing the same job. Those 3 layers were talking with each other with no problem. They had no issues with each other. And then on the top, you got your manager and your director the rules. He was the guy, he was the guy of 1850. The guy also says, I have the knowledge, I'm responsible for, I'm a micromanager. So he was sitting in every single meeting. So misconception among manager and directors, at the end of the day, I'm the one who's responsible. Well, I've got a message for you, you're not. Your team is responsible because you're never alone responsible. And if you're responsible and you get your hammer on your head, you'll always push it down. You're not the only one who's responsible in the room. And then you get your managers, they were on a puppet on a string by the director. Plus, they had a very directive leadership style. So if you want to change that and you wanted to get the culture in the culture of the year 2020, there has to be a change a lot. Now they're coming in the generation X, Y, and Z. I'm from the generation X, and the generation X is the generation of the 70s, the 80s, and 90s. Those people went to work for the money. What's my title? What's my money? That's important. The generation nowadays, they go for happiness. Money is not really an object anymore. They would like to earn a decent payroll, decent paycheck, but the money is not the most important thing. That's why this generation shifts companies 7 to 8 times during their life. But we in the past, we always stayed with the same company for 20, 30 years. So that's quite a difference. So we have a past in that company that I've described now, and we have a future. So we have a vision on change management. This culture eats strategy for breakfast. So as long as the culture within your team is not okay, you won't achieve anything. So what we did, we had some healing interventions. So the people were afraid. Was payback. If you don't do what I say, we have an appraisal. We'll see what happens. You get no raise and that kind of stuff. The autonomy, no empowerment. Every single detail needs to be approved by the management. No authority, no proposal. Everything was standing still. Cheap. Again, cheap. They will follow, and if you hit them often enough, they will say, yes, I'll do so. And there's no input anymore coming from them. You don't use their brain anymore and you don't empower them anymore. So, but also, is that correct? That's why you need to talk to everybody in the room. And then you get one very, very dangerous part that everywhere happens and when you need to be very careful with. I don't know if you understand where I'm heading to. Perception. What I'm saying and what you are understanding are 2 different things. You need to take that into account. What I'm talking about here and what you're interpreting, what I'm saying, could be 2 different things. This perception is a very, very difficult thing. Perception is not reality. So information is no communication. What someone tells and what someone understands could be two different things. Communication is hard, but it's hardest what there is. So perception, if there's no communication, then perception lives. Otherwise, perception goes. That's one important thing. But what did we then have? Passion. There was no passion. People do not show initiatives because they are repeatedly rejected of their proposals, so they stop putting up proposals. With a few approved proposals, not much was happened. Resignation, a lot of people were sitting in a golden cage. They were well paid. They had an awful lot of holidays there. So they just come to work 8 hours a day, just sitting there doing their job and leaving. There was no passion, there was no dopamine in there, and no recognition, no authority, no engagement, no passion. The people perish. Because we had creating intervention. So we have to move that around, shift that. The people need to have trust into the management again. What has the management to do to get the trust back into the people? As we had certain things, we need to have a vision for our department and the work order process and project management process. If the job is coming in, we need to know who's handling what part of that job, who's executing it, and who is checking the quality of the job. The same goes for the project management. Not every single proposal of a project gets through to execution. There needs to be some kind of layers and decisions what's important. So we built in a project management flow and implement a reliability strategy and a set up a reliability team. We had a maintenance team and we had an engineering team, but there was no reliability team. Because the maintenance guys were doing a lot of things that thought that they were good, but they were solving each time the same issues. And if we got a major breakdown, there was no risk analysis afterwards why it broke down. We had several motors who keep pumps who keep going break, always on the same issue, but no one investigated it. So we built a reliability team. People, there needed to be a clear direction. Functional description, there needs some kind of a functional description, but it has to be a functional description with fences around. Knowledge and responsibility, or the pillars, communication, and most of all, the team should having fun. So if you start a change project and you have your certain hurdles you have to take, for every single hurdle you need to celebrate. Celebration in a team is key. When you work in a company and you have achieved certain things, take your team outside of the company and go for a drink or go for a team building, something else, but celebrate every time if you have a small success. If you celebrate, the people see each other not in a working environment, but in another kind of environment, and they learn to know each other in a different way and appreciate each other in a different way. So think a change project is it's not a sprint. A change project is a marathon. So I give you a few examples. What we did an approach. We implemented an AMA, there's a CMMS, asset management excellence process was executed, and we have some people management things that we've done. So approach. We did some kind of a survey. This is the BAM model, as I call it, the Brilliant Asset Management Model. It's built out of 28 building blocks with 320 questions behind it. And if you execute that exercise, you see you got 5 layers. You got a foundation. So you got your CMMS and your vision. Your mission is your foundation of your asset management. Second is your reliability, operational management, continuous improvement, and resource and training. Then you get some kind of a calculation behind it, and you can see what's my level of asset management excellence at this stage. I can assure you, in every single company I come, and it doesn't really mean is it now a nuclear plant of a food plant, of a transportation. That really matters is always rather low. It's always between the 13 and the 20. If no excellence exercise have been executed there, so that's not an issue. It's normal. And then you see, okay, we got a lot of red flags and orange flags. And we start with implementing a CMMS, and then first we start with the vision and the mission, and then we build a CMMS. We build a mind map, what's necessary in the CMMS, what all the features we need in the CMMS. We need to discuss that. We do it together with a team. So we ask who is interested to build and help with the implementing of a CMMS, and everybody can join in. But you know, if you remember at the beginning of the presentation, only the 13% will make a step forward. Okay, I will help. Get those people in, do some kind of a Makigami, a process value mapping, that kind of stuff. You build your work order flow and you implement it in the CMMS. And then you start implementing your CMS, and everybody has to start their jobs within the CMMS. Secondly, asset management excellence process, as I told you. And then you see, first we have a CMMS and a vision and mission. And then we start looking at what is also missing. The work order management is not okay. You got corrective maintenance not okay. Integrated planning is not okay. And you got several things. And then you build a roadmap. And that's one thing I heard in one of the former presentations. Don't make a huge project. It's a huge project, but cut it up in small projects. Do some kind of a Scrum approach, but not a Scrum in 2-week sprints, but make it 8-week sprints. And try to put it up in smaller amounts. And I typically do it in quarters. You see, every quarter of 2019, we prepared the implementation of the asset management triangle, for instance. The second was the PO concepts for the ventilation and the cooling. Because everybody, we had all teams volunteered, and they're working on those single projects. Afterwards, we said, okay, I'll just lift one out and say we need to have a decent planning and work order process. How do we do that? Planning and scheduling process. And I said we need to have an asset coordinator on the side of the production, because there needs to be one technical guy who reports into production, who's responsible for the uptime of his equipment. Because if you want to do maintenance in the production and you talk to a production guy, there's never time, because they have an output, and OEE is very important. So get a coordinator who's responsible for the uptime for your equipment. And if he's responsible for the uptime for your equipment, he makes sure that maintenance get the time to do the preventive maintenance. So he asked, the scheduler says, okay, we have to do certain preventive maintenance tasks. He talks to the asset coordinator that those times are available to do the preventive maintenance. When we get the times and the days for the preventive maintenance, we talk to the work preparators, prepare the jobs, and execute them. There's a plan to act kind of exercise. People management, we did an MBTI, as I talked before. And what you can see here, we got 7 people or ESTG, 7 people or ESFG, 14 people ESTG, and 6 people ESFG. If you look a bit further and what those typical characters mean, then you see that with 3 out of 4 don't like change. You see, I don't like change. Last minute changes, I don't like that. And here, constant changes, I don't like change. But you know, you got a population where you're going to do a change project. You do not like change from a character point of view. This is one very important point that you take that along if you start your change process. And then you look into your organization. And you know everybody, you've talked to them, you know what their character is, you know what they love, you know what their passion is, and then you start shifting around. You see, that was the org chart in the beginning. We got an electrical team, we had a mechanical team, we had a facility building team, we got a manager in the middle. There was no reliability, there was no planner inside, and the people in the middle circle were the work preparators. Then we drove our bus in and said we would like the right people on the bus, because we know what the people are in the team. We know what people we had in maintenance and engineering, and they say we would like to have the right people on the right seats. And then you start really shifting. You say when your passion and your talents and your knowledge is more engineering based and not maintenance based. And you start shifting around. So you could be a very decent scheduler. So why won't you take up the position for scheduler? You put that people around, but you know still from beginning of the presentation, 20% is disengaged. That has 2 reasons. They are negative all the way, or they are sitting in the wrong department. department or the wrong job. And then you get the wrong people off the bus. That means if you shift them to another department where they can retrieve their passion and their talents, and they can use their talents, or you throw them off the plant. A rotten apple needs to be removed. Sorry for that, but that's the case. And then you start shifting around. So I know Mark and Benny weren't the people managers. They were work preparators, but they had no people management skills. But Matthias has. So we shifted those technicians to Matthias, and he organizes now those guys, their jobs, and he followed those up. And Benny and Mark would do only work preparation. We have put Bart in, and we had a planner. So we had more efficiency in the planning. There's also the people were 100% planned, and in the past they were only 70% planned. And we had a liability engineer on, who was investigating not only the corrective maintenance that has been done, but also was entering in the project department. And then we started looking for backups for each other. Bart was the guy who was always busy with the telephone installation and the GMS and the communication and that kind of stuff, but there was no backups. So who's volunteering to back up for Bart and who needs the necessary education to do so? And so we built in the complete department everywhere redundancy. Redundancy is necessary because when one gets ill or wants a holiday, there needs to be a guy who knows has the same knowledge, of course. And it's not a threat. Don't see it as a threat. It's something we need to keep the plant running 100%. And then see after 1 year, a lot of rectangles became green or yellow, and we already 1 year we increased our efficiency with 10%. And normally, excellence exercise takes 2 to 3 years to get a normal level above the 65. So what have we done in the past? Optimization of the maintenance process in the pharma. So we reduced the time or the duration of a work order. The average duration of a work order was 4.6 hours. But taking account, we had 9,000 work orders a year, and we could reduce it with 1 hour per work order, was 9,000 hours multiplied with 50 euros, or 450,000 euros we gained every single year on the maintenance budget just by more efficiently executing the job. And that means do a decent work preparation and do a decent planning of your people. So you don't have to get people from outside to get over the hills. And we gained almost €500,000. In the food industry, we had a liability put in, and we gained more than €150,000 a year on the total budget of the maintenance budget. Was the food industry of I believe it was 3 or 4 million, but that's quite an amount. Always take into account a liability engineer is an engineer who doesn't cost anything for the company. He has to show every single year, every project that he did, he regained his own paycheck normally. So what we did at the first year was air pressure leak repair. There's a very easy one, but air pressure is the most costly energy there is. So if you repair your air leaks, you get 150K a year. And we exchanged some vacuum pumps, which were in carbon steel, and we shift them to stainless steel, so the life cycle of the vacuum pump was much longer. One vacuum pump costed 70,000 euros, and every 2 years they were failing. And now the MBTF was, instead of 2 years, was 5 years. And then the last, the nuclear, we looked into SLAs, the service level agreements. The most of the money, easy money, is in the maintenance contracts. A lot of external company coming to do maintenance on your equipment, like compressors, for instance. But you need to take a deep look into those maintenance contracts and clean that up. There's a lot of money in there and a lot of things that are not executed or not properly executed. So we gain 390K euros a year by just optimizing 7 SLAs. So now coming to the main thing is, what's the missing link between projects and maintenance? Project management, scope, on time, within budget. Three key words. If your scope is bad, you have a time issue, and suddenly you will have a budget issue. Maintenance, you need 100% availability, and your life cycle cost needs to be under control. Costing should be optimal. Availability should be as high as possible. Missing a link is reliability. Liability in projects. Point for every single project that you have a liability engineer to it. What's his responsibility? He has to be present during HAZOP and FMECAS. Also, he has to do the RCMs. But later on, your preventive maintenance plans, predictive maintenance plans are based on RCMs. He has to own the list of standard materials. Don't allow any type of pump or valve into your plan, but try to standardize them, but put that responsibility with your reliability engineer. And he has to look into the project to make sure that everything is okay. He has to build your preventive predictive maintenance plans before the handover of the project so they are ready. He needs to make sure that the spare parts are available by handover. Then he needs to be that the technical documentation is in your CMMS. And he has to make sure that your people are well trained in the maintenance department. That is what he needs to do on a project point of view. And these are the things that needs in project manager of the project. But there's also one valid point by the handover for the maintenance department. On the other hand, reliability in maintenance, he has to look in the 10 worst case studies. So see, just some kind of a Pareto when you look into corrective maintenance, and he takes 10 worst cases out of it. The 10 worst cases are based on two factors. What are the breakdowns cost us an awful lot of money? And what are the breakdowns who are repeatedly coming back? 10 worst cases, he should do risk cost analysis on them, like 5W, Ishikawa, so any way of you could solve that problem and start projects to solve those issues. He should manage the list of standard material, but that list will need to be modified during his life. Update the PM plans because based on what's coming back from the preventive maintenance, he has to modify the timing or the equipment or the spare parts necessary to apply the preventive maintenance or predictive maintenance and manage the technical documentation. So if you start a change project, the people part is one big major part, and you have to make sure that your people part is okay and that your culture is top. As soon as your people are in the right direction, then you start on the processes and not earlier. You get knocked down 6 times, even more, but you have to stand up each time again, stand up 7 times, each time 1 time more if you get knocked down, because it's a very, very difficult process because you're working with people and not with equipment. And take into account, it's not a cheap zone. Make use of the knowledge of the people, empower the people, and you will be amazed what they can achieve. If there are any questions.
Thank you, Rudy. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Great. Any question? Any question in the room? Or online? I think Rudy has given us almost a full day's masterclass.
Hello, Jonathan, from online. Hello.
Okay, please, go ahead.
Yes, for me, I just saw the quote where he said something about culture eats strategy for breakfast. And I would like to understand more. The culture is referring to, is it the culture in the organization, or is it the culture of, of the people, where they came, the background of the people? How does that now impact that strategy? So I need to get more clarity on that.
Okay.
Okay, Rudy, go ahead.
You have a bunch of people in your department coming from a cultural background. If I look into Belgium, I do a plan in Antwerp, for instance. We're not that big in Belgium, but I can easily have 10 to 15 different kinds of people coming from all over Europe and even Africa or Asia. Everybody have coming back from home and other cultural background. You need to take it into account. If you got some people who are Muslims, take an account when it's Ramadan, that those people you need to look carefully at and give them more lighter work. There are certain things you need to take an account of. But on the other hand, you need to have a culture that coming from home. You need that in account, but you need to create a culture within your team, and that's independent of the color, of the religion, of any white. Is the culture of your team, and the culture of your team needs to be everybody must have the feeling that he can say whatever is on his heart, and that's important, and without repercussions, of course. Yeah. But you had a culture coming from home, no problem. The guy who's running the project of the change project has to know what was going on with the people at home to take that into account. But within the company itself is the culture of the company, and that's quite different.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks.
Great. Any other question, please? Okay, there's one in the room here.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, my question is, during your presentation, you said if you involve the people, they will see a solution to every problem. But if you don't involve them, everything will be a problem. I quite agree with this. But there is a situation whereby you involve the people who are lower in the cadre of maintenance. You involve them in all the plans that you have and all that you want to play out. And because they already have this knowledge, but they don't have all the technical skill required to execute. But because they already have the knowledge, they go out to start working on the equipment or doing things they are not supposed to do, and then jeopardize the whole process. How do you manage this?
No, you're building processes, and they're part of building the process in a team. And they are entering information and data, but they are not really changing the team and not changing the process by themselves.
The capability of an asset to continue to perform its intended function. It has to continue to perform its intended function. That, when we talk about equipment reliability, that is what we're talking about. The probability that an item will not fail during a given operating period under specified conditions. In maintenance, we can consider equipment reliability in various ways. We can consider reliability of an equipment as a single equipment, as equipment that are in parallel, or equipment that are in series, or a hybrid of all of these. Talking in terms of practical terms, if you want to have an idea of reliability, you can have it that reliability equals to T minus F, all of it divided by T, where T is installed hours or total hours for which the equipment was expected to function, and F is forced downtime during that period. Next slide. So that is what reliability of an equipment is all about. And now we have been talking about maintenance and maintenance. What exactly is it? Maintenance is any activity that is carried out at an acceptable standard and cost for the purpose of preserving, will be fit for purpose. And usually, this is done according to appropriate strategies. Some others defined maintenance in some other ways. And we can look at one of them, the combination of all technical, administrative, and managerial actions during the life cycle of an item intended to retain it in or restore it to a state in which it can perform the required function. By this, we are saying that the process of management approving a budget, a maintenance budget, is also part of maintenance. If they do not approve it, nothing will be done. So that is what we're saying. Next slide. We said that maintenance is usually done according to various strategies. And what we mean by strategy is the management and technical methods used in order to achieve the desirable outcome. For various situations, you desire different outcomes. In order to optimize cost and benefits and achieve the goals suitable for each circumstance, maintenance is carried out according to different plans or methods. All these are called strategies, the different plans or methods. The classification of maintenance strategies by types by different authors is rife. Different authors classify it in various ways. Sometimes what happens is that one person gives a particular name, another one gives a particular name, but by the time we go deep down into it, different names, but they mean the same thing. However, maintenance strategies are broadly classified into proactive maintenance and reactive maintenance. That is the broad classification. These are still further classified. They have their own subsets. Next slide.
We are not seeing the screen.
Technical, please help us. Like you see here, this is somebody's view as the overview of maintenance strategies. Here, they decided to use the word preventive maintenance and corrective maintenance as the major classifications. But the reality is that preventive maintenance is proactive maintenance. Preventive maintenance is proactive maintenance. And corrective maintenance is reactive maintenance. That is what happens. Under preventive maintenance, or what some people call proactive maintenance, we have it done in various ways. The classifications under just happens to be the way they are done. Next slide. Let us talk about reactive maintenance. In reactive maintenance, equipment is allowed to run to failure. Then we react by doing repairs, adjustments, or replacement. Some call it corrective maintenance. In the case of reactive maintenance, what happens is that we are managed by our assets or equipment. Our assets or equipment managers in reactive maintenance. You use an equipment until it just fails down, and then you begin to run helter-skelter to try and fix it. The equipment is managing us. Now, is it good for us to allow equipment to manage us? Do we like it? Okay. Some others say it is maintenance activity which is required to correct failure that has occurred or is in the process of occurring. running equipment to failure. Usually what happens, that the moment you run equipment to failure, you are going to have extensive damages. And when you have extensive damages, you also have higher maintenance cost. That is what happens. Next slide. For this reason, people prefer proactive maintenance. People prefer what? Proactive maintenance. Whenever technical conditions advise that it should be so done. Really, there are situations where reactive maintenance or corrective maintenance is best. But we are not going into that now. Proactive maintenance is maintenance work done before equipment breakdown. According to organizational maintenance policy, here there's an assumption that there is a maintenance policy. Unfortunately, in some organizations, they do not have a maintenance policy. But here, the assumption is that every organization has a maintenance policy. Do we know any organization that does not have a maintenance policy? Do we know? Eh? Okay. It's a serious matter. So, with proactive maintenance, we plan and take control of the reliability and availability of our equipment. We do not leave it to chance. We don't leave it to chance. We manage the situation instead of the situation managing us. And proactive maintenance is further classified as follows. Next slide. Okay. Preventive maintenance. Preventive maintenance really is a proactive approach that helps us to reduce breakdowns through a program of lubrication adjustment, cleaning, inspection, and replacement. It helps us to reduce breakdowns. It is not that when you do it, there will be no breakdown again, but the breakdowns become reduced. It is work intended to preserve an asset, to prevent failure, and to detect incipient faults. As we go on, we shall see the case of incipient faults. Not yet. Back. One of the way preventive maintenance is done, let me explain a little bit. The various components of an equipment do not all have the same useful life. For example, the spark plugs of a car, you may change them more than 4 times before you start talking about replacing piston rings. What happens in preventive maintenance is that for various jobs to be done, we base it on manufacturer's recommendation, experience, or failure history. Time intervals are fixed. Sometimes time intervals are fixed. After 2,000 hours, do this. For our cars, what is fixed? Our cars, what is fixed? Is what? For our cars, what they fix? Kilometer reading. For the cars, kilometer reading. But in some equipment, it is time interval. After 1 month, after 4 months, and so on, a certain type of job is to be done. usually what happens is a list of assets is made. And when the list of assets is made, it is made according to equipment types. For example, you have a list of all your pumps. Even pumps, you list them according to the various types of pumps. Reciprocating pumps, centrifugal pumps, and so on. Then a tax list is made for each equipment type. The tax list is made, and the frequency for which that tax is to be carried out is also written down. With that, a job plan is made for each equipment type. For some, as I have said, it depends on the meter reading. For others, just time. So whenever the time comes, a particular tax is to be carried out, as indicated in the tax instruction. To do this, some people do it manually. I started at a time when we were doing it manually. Then we translated to a time when we started using computer to do it. If you are to do it manually, you just have it on a spreadsheet like Microsoft Excel.
Recording in progress.
Or if you have an enterprise asset management software or a computerized maintenance management software, you can upload the whole plans, the whole preventive maintenance plans in the software. When you load it in the, next slide. When you upload it in the software, what happens is that because of the way the software is configured, whenever the time comes, a work request becomes generated. Depending on your level of sophistication, the work request is printed out, signed, and it becomes a work order. And the job just has to be done. If you are not using a computer system, what we have here now is an example of what I was involved in some years ago. If you're not using a computer system, where is back? Okay. So you have in the first place the numbers, just serial numbers. The second column is the field, the location where the equipment is. Then you have the code for the equipment, a description of what the equipment is, brief description of the job, then the job card that contains exactly what you are going to carry out on that equipment. We have the frequency. 00 is for daily, and so on. Then here we have each month is just on a sheet. Each month you indicate the month where the job will be done using an X. However, based on the frequency. With this, you might be able to use macros to run the Excel sheet, and it will bring out for you all the jobs you are going to do on a particular month. That is for those who are using manual system. However, if the number of equipment subject to maintenance that you have, if there are not so many, it will not be advisable, or it will not be economic to use a manual system with macros, and then you get what you want, and you keep going. Next, please. Predictive maintenance. Predictive maintenance is aimed at monitoring the condition of your assets. You monitor it and know what is happening to your assets. In doing this, you choose some parameter that you'll use to do the monitoring. For example, if you are dealing with a turbo compressor, or maybe a turbo generator, one of the parameters of choice is vibration frequency and amplitude. With the vibration frequency, you will be able to determine which component is operating at that frequency. Then the amplitude, as the days go by, the amplitude continues to increase. As it is increasing, based on experience, you have an idea of the level it will get to, and then there'll be a breakdown. So before it gets to that point, you look for a way to shut the equipment down and carry out maintenance. If you are using a computerized maintenance management system, as you measure these parameters, you update the values in the CMMS. As you do that, as the value gets to a certain preset threshold, the CMMS will generate a work request so that you will go and intervene before a breakdown happens. The next one is total productive maintenance. These activities involving the total workforce. Really, it is a maintenance philosophy that was developed in Japan in 1971. What happens here is you try to bring about a situation where you train the whole staff in an organization so that their maintenance culture will improve. Their maintenance culture will improve, especially those of them who work in production. You train them to a point where every person assumes ownership of the equipment. And the moment they assume ownership of the equipment, the moment anything is happening, they will report, especially the production staff or operations staff. They are closer to the equipment. For others, if it so happens that somebody is passing somewhere and there's a leakage, as long as they have been trained to have ownership of the equipment, they will report it. They will report. So when this is done, incipient faults early and handled. For those of them who are in production or operations, when they have this idea, when they see a situation where lubricant level is going too low or water has entered inside lubricant, the moment they see it, they will react because they have been trained to a point where they are able to change lubricant. They will not wait for maintenance department. Where you have a car and a driver. A properly trained driver takes good care of the car. The driver ensures that the car does not lack lubricant. The driver ensures that the car does not lack water. And if anything is beginning to happen to the engine of the car, any part of the car, the driver reports without waste of time. This is how the issue of total productive maintenance works. I know that I've been involved in it. We set up a plan for it and sent it out. And the people in production felt that we were laboring them. However, it proved useful. Next slide. Failure finding maintenance, which is also called functional checks, is a type of preventive maintenance where we try to check out for hidden failures. There are some equipment that even if they fail, you cannot readily see it. A typical example is the pressure relief valve of a pressure vessel. If it fails, there's no way you will see it. You will only know that it has failed when there is a problem and it does not pop open to relieve pressure. So, and there are some other things that fall under this category. So what we do is we carry out what is known as functional checks. Another situation is the emergency shutdown system. It will never tell you that I have failed. So what we do, we have a task instruction and a time when maintenance intervention will be done. When they go, what they do is they inhibit the shutdown action. Because if you play with emergency shutdown, if you are in a very big plant, if you mess up with it, by the time you will shut down the plant unintentionally, and you know what that means. So when the maintenance people go, they inhibit the shutdown action and test the other parts of the emergency shutdown system. As long as it supplies the shutdown signal, we know that the system has not failed, it's still working, and we move ahead. Another example happens to be the windings of a generator. Insulation of the windings degrades over time. But what is done is that from time to time, depending on the preventive maintenance plan, insulation resistant checks are done on the windings. And the moment it is found that it is deteriorating and it has reached a certain level, the equipment is taken out, revarnished, baked, and put in use again. When you do that, if you test it, you'll find that the insulation resistance has improved. Next slide. So, having said all of this, why maintenance? Why do we have to do maintenance? Why do we bother ourselves with it? The scope of this paper is only preventive, predictive, and proactive maintenance. This happens to cover a good chunk of what maintenance is all about. But since we now know that industrial competitiveness and productivity depend on production and service delivery. And service delivery and production depends on various assets, equipment, which must be reliably available and function with optimal efficiency. If not, the company or organization cannot make profit. So we do maintenance because it serves to keep these facilities and equipment fit for purpose in a cost-effective way. A study captured the significance of maintenance to company profitability. As the industrial sector continues to be more capital equipment intensive instead of labor intensive, production is also taking different forms, mass production and production of various types of products. If maintenance is not carried out, all of these will just grind to a halt before long. That is why we do maintenance. Next slide. So, maintenance interacts with other aspects of any organization, such as safety and so on. We know that in the past, in history, a lot of accidents have happened as a result of neglecting maintenance. People neglected maintenance, so a number of accidents happened. In the past, some people considered maintenance just as a cost center. But as a result of knowledge that is changing, they are beginning to see maintenance as a profit center and not just a cost center. Some also in the past considered it as a necessary evil. But in fact, it is a profit center. The reason why people saw it like that is because when you do maintenance, people do not readily realize what you are preventing. They don't readily realize it. And so some people carried out a study, and they found out that maintenance plays a significant role in improving company productivity and profitability. And so it is indispensable. And they came up by saying that it is indeed a profit center, not just a cost center. Next slide. Next slide, please. So we conclude. The implementation of maintenance with the appropriate strategies, such as proactive, preventive, predictive maintenance, is vital for productivity and continued existence of modern industrial organizations. The fact that, for those of us who read Bible, that in Genesis chapter 2, verse 15, God intended that Adam, the first man, should do maintenance. When my attention was drawn to that, I was excited. That maintenance should be done. Actually, I was excited. And that should ring a bell in our ears. However, the benefits of maintenance would be a mirage unless company stakeholders and decision makers buy into its implementation. Sometimes we have a situation where you are in maintenance and you tell them all these things, you know it. Maybe, but the decision makers are not, you are not able to convince them and they don't buy into it, nothing will work. You will only have it in your head. In fact, you may become frustrated because you know what you do and it's not been done. For this reason, maintenance engineering management has to provide leadership and secure top management buy-in. Only then would the necessary resources be provided for implementation. And as you start implementing, we should be proficient enough because we need to have the necessary soft skills to be able to demonstrate to management through our reports, because they like to receive reports, through our reports, the benefits of maintenance, and that it is indeed a profit center. This would result in continuous support by top management to keep production, plant, and equipment reliable and available for the needed profitability. So at this point in time,
Thanks, doctor. You see how when a doctor makes a presentation, you see how he took his time to articulate everything step by what? Step. So no ambiguity. So that you understand everything. Thank you so much. We appreciate that presentation. Questions? Mr. Steve, you said there was no questions. See them, they don't come. Doctor has, you know, the questions are coming now that we are switching into the technical. So let me see the questions. I'll give you numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let me start with the lady. No, you'll be last. Okay.
Okay, good afternoon. My question is this. We understand that maintenance improve reliability of an equipment. Now my question is, having known that an equipment is supposed to function for a period of time as the OEM specification, due to proactive maintenance of that equipment, and it got to that time at which it is due for replacement, but that equipment is still functional. Is it right for us to still continue using that equipment without replacement because it's still functional?
You can go ahead with that one.
Okay. That, to some extent, depends on the criticality of the equipment. If the equipment fails, what will happen? Replacement has its own cost. And so there is normally in maintenance, there's this issue of replacement analysis. Replacement analysis, you subject every equipment to replacement analysis. When the manufacturers tell you that this equipment, that the useful life is 10 years or 30 years, they have done that sometimes
Recording in progress.
sometimes to protect their interest. So as long as you are doing condition-based maintenance, if you check and you do the analysis and the equipment can still serve you for a longer period, you continue.
Thank you. Let me take next one.
You said some things about preventive and corrective. That if an equipment, if you carry out preventive maintenance, it will last longer. But if you don't do that, and when the equipment fails, you carry out corrective maintenance, and you advise that we should do the preventive. But sometimes the equipment will be calling us that I'm due for this, or I am tired. You attend to it. That we should not allow the equipment to call us, but we should go to them. Now, we have some scenarios where it's like Newton's law is coming into play, that the equipment is working. As far as nothing happens to it, it keeps working until something just happens suddenly, probably maybe a shutdown happens. And to start up now, this equipment cannot start. How do we describe those scenarios and how to handle them? Because there was no symptom that this equipment needs this attention.
Okay.
If you say there was no symptom, it means you were not doing predictive maintenance. As long as you do predictive maintenance, you'll be able to see the symptoms. Now, I know that there are equipment we describe as sudden failure equipment. Like all these bulbs, they are sudden failure equipment. But if you are dealing with such, you design your system such that if one bulb fails, the other ones will, because all of them will not fail at a time. The other ones will carry on. Then also, you can decide to carry out a replacement strategy. If it's a very critical situation, a replacement strategy where by the time you do your analysis, you know that these bulbs should be replaced after a certain number of hours. And then when that time comes, whether the bulb is dead or not, whether it has burnt out or not, you replace it.
Great.
Is
your question answered?
Question answered. Let me ask.
Sudden failures.
You want us to talk about sudden failure, unexpected failure. We have described it now.
So let me put something in for you. Okay. Hello. Let me just chip in, right? Just clearly what he says. Nothing fails suddenly. It must. What you're talking about is you're looking at a scenario where you see the failure. Now, the onset of failure, most onset of failure cannot be diagnosed by human senses. The day you see something vibrating that you can see, the failure started 3 months ago. So by the time you are seeing a physical effect, you're already at the point of functional failure where you are going to lose the function of that equipment. So like you said, you shut it down, it refuses to come back up. That is what we call them hidden failure, right? Hidden failure. So the failure already existed, but it has not shown itself what? Physically. So, and that's where predictive maintenance he talks about comes to play. So when you have predictive maintenance tools can pick signals that your natural senses cannot what? Pick. Now, if you go to the second kinds of equipment he talked about, where he talked about equipment that you cannot pick the signals from for a light bulb. So we call them non-repairable items, non-repairable equipment. When they want to fail, they just go poof. Now, there are strategies for non-repairable items. So for non-repairable items, you run your analysis and you have what we call mean time to fail. So what that means is you can go check. Some of this database already exists. So when you want to even buy an equipment, you don't need to have all the 2,000 bulbs and test them when they will fail before you run your analysis. You can go to places like Orida and Co. and get details. So you know, okay, these bulbs, some of them, it is clearly stated, it will last 1,000 hours. Some might last more than 1,000. Some might last what? Less. On average, 1,000. You know the bulb is non-repairable. So what do? I can choose to have a PM that says at 800, change out what? All the bulbs. So because I know that this is a non-repairable item and it can just go bust at any what? Time. So at 800, my strategy said what? Change. And it's not just my strategy says change. Some people may have made this strategy that says change 25 years ago before you came to the company. And you are the electrical technician. They say go and do lighting PM. You go, you turn the bulb on, it's working. You turn it off, you say it's working. There's no need to what? Change it. And that's another problem. Where people are meant to carry out activities they don't know why they are doing. 90% of us don't know why we carry out the maintenance activities we carry out. We don't know why it is 2 weekly, why it is 3 monthly. We don't know why we need to change the filter when the filter is absolutely okay. We don't know why we should change a gasket when the PM says change it at 6 months. And when you bring it out, it looks perfect, it looks new. So what do? You put it back in. So what happens later? What you call sudden failure, now what happens? Because the countermeasures have been what? Taken off. Clear? So you see, professor plus non-professor. So we add it together, right? That's the point. All of us what? Learn together. Well, that Juju Kosam. Okay. Claire, I want to go to the third question. Okay, let me come back to you, please. We're also pressed for time, so I might have to combine and adjust.
Okay, I want to ask, the questions my friend asked is part of what I want to ask, but I understand that some of our leaders in our various companies where we work, they understand the maintenance policy and strategy. But in a situation whereby the accountant or the management itself, they are too conscious of profit in the production, they will not want us to understand, obey the maintenance policy. And that is where this thing comes in. They say, yes, it's working. You want us to shut down? But the maintenance manager will be drawing the attention of what we agree after 6 months, after 4,000 hours. Let's go down. The people in the finance area who are calculating the profit accrued to what is happening. Before you know it, certain equipment don't tell us where they will fail. For instance, let me use the example of gas turbine. You'll be running it at your pace, at where you want. But you don't understand what is happening in the hot gas part, whereby you must go down to check the blade condition and check what is happening. Before you know it, you are done. And then a maintenance man will be blamed that he doesn't know what he's doing. So in that aspect, what are we going to do? Thank you.
Well,
let me add one before you answer.
Okay.
First of all, invite the man to this program so that he